What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. It's a Sooners Illustrated podcast, episode 43 on this Thursday, December 14th, 2023. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green with you on a Thursday. Third podcast of the week. That's because there's just a ton going on. It's been a crazy week around here. Transfer portal is ablaze. Oh, you got another commitment yesterday. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. The SEC schedule for next year dropped. Very exciting stuff. Going to break that down a little bit as well as we get ready for the Alamo Bowl here coming up in 2 weeks from today. Kind of sneaking up a little bit before you know it. Final game of the season. But gentlemen, let's backtrack back to Tuesday to start. A lot has happened. It feels like a long time ago already. But back before we knew about the Caden Green news, we were able to be at practice on Tuesday. Got to see these guys for the first time. Obviously, and I think most fans get it, that during the season, practice is never open. It's not a thing. They're getting ready for games. They don't want media to see what they're doing, what they're working on before each game. But in fall camp and spring camp and in these bowl practices that are a little more generic, for lack of a better word, they're not really focused on the opponent that much. They let us come out there and see it. So we got to see the practice for the first time in several months. I'll just open the floor here, guys. Anything that stuck out? Obviously, there was a few pretty noteworthy things that jumped out right away when we immediately got out there. Obviously, Tawee Walker was practicing, which was caught a lot of attention. You tweet out the little bowling emojis, which certainly imply that he's going to probably play in San Antonio here in a couple weeks. It's interesting. It's interesting to see a guy in the portal. Looks like he's still going to finish out the season. Somewhat rare, but if you're Oklahoma, you're on board with it because you're still trying to win this thing.
And I talked to Gavin.
I was going to say, I think someone pointed out, didn't Josh Ellison do that last year where he entered the portal, but he still played in the bowl game for Oklahoma?
Maybe.
But I get it. Like they need some bodies there, and if like Tawee is on good terms with the coaching staff and everything like that, and maybe use this for him as a little bit more of an audition to kind of springboard him into some other scholarship opportunities in the portal. Because especially now that they picked up a running back on the transfer portal, you don't really need Tawee. Like you figure that he's probably gone. And like we discussed before, he's a guy that has a son, needs to get on scholarship somewhere, needs an opportunity to earn a little bit more NIL money. And maybe Oklahoma just can't offer that to him right now. So not totally surprising to see him out there, but it was definitely one of the first things that caught our attention.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that Oklahoma fans and probably, some of the guys around, they kind of want, Tawee being back would be a very, fortunate situation, but the situation probably just doesn't make very much sense for him. But as we talked, out there with Gavin Sawchuk, we didn't get to talk to Tawee Walker, but we got to talk to Sawchuk, and he was really like, it was just Tawee wants to finish, what he started. That's pretty much what it is. He wants to finish the season out, help out the team. And that's exactly what you want, especially from a guy like that. He's a guy that can definitely, as we said, has earned a scholarship somewhere else. So being a part of this, being around the guys and helping out the team, a team that he's probably not going to play for next season, that's pretty big from him as well. It shows a lot about his character.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that when, obviously this was very early in practice. We only got to see maybe 15 minutes of actual drills.
Sure.
But Tawee was second in rotation at running back behind Gavin. Obviously Marcus Majors moved on already. He wasn't out there. Javonte Barnes, we still don't know how healthy he is. Dalen Smothers in the portal, he's gone. So they probably need Tawee Walker to kind of help shoulder the load with Gavin in this bowl game.
Yeah, no. If you're trying to win this thing, which Oklahoma is, it helps a lot, obviously, because like you said, Tom, looking at the running backs in practice, even just with Tawee back, it looked a little thin. It was kind of like, okay, no Major, no Smothers, obviously, like you said. It was only a few guys. You had Emeka Megwa. He's like a mythic figure.
Jalil Farouk was out there as well a little bit.
No, that was a trick. It was a trickeration. No. Megwa was wearing 3. It tricked a lot of people.
Oh, see, now when I was videoing, that's what I thought.
It was confusing everybody. So Megwa was out there, and Caleb Hicks looked good, obviously, but these are guys we haven't seen in actual game action at all. And so, when you're talking about this game, the Alamo Bowl, in 2 weeks, it would have been it would have been Sawchuk, and then who knows if you didn't have Tawee Walker. So that's a nice plus when it comes to that. Obviously, offensive line is extremely interesting as well. We've talked about it. I talked about it yesterday with Colin at length. Obviously, everybody knows at this point, Kane Green's in the portal. Now, thankfully, and we talked about it on Monday, and I talked about it yesterday with Colin, they're going to have to replace the entire offensive line going into next year. That's not the case now. I mean, you are missing multiple guys, but you're still going to have Walter Rouse. You're still going to have McKay Matoyer for the ball game. But after that, they're going to have to piece it together. What do you guys think about the offensive line right now? And who plays against Arizona? I mean, you have options. You have obviously Jake Sexton finished the year strong. Troy Everett's around, although he looked like he was banged up. He wasn't going through all the drills in practice on Tuesday. It's going to be kind of a patch job for Bill Beanbo when that game with Arizona comes up here in, like I said, 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that was the main thing I wanted to look at when we were out there, just to see what the offensive line was going to look like. And, mind you, this was before news of Caden Green's transfer, hit. I was out there and I was, taking note of who was working where, and I was like asking around, I was like, am I crazy or is Caden Green not out here? Because I was like, I know some guys have been wearing different jerseys, but I did not see him, so I was very confused. And then sure enough, like as we're walking off the field, the transfer news hits.
Crazy.
But yeah, no, like they are very fortunate that Walter Rouse and McKay Matoyer are finishing this out. Kind of alluded to it in the show earlier in the week, but we expected Walter Rouse definitely to play in this game just because, like you mentioned, when he was at Stanford, they never made a bowl game. So this is going to be his only opportunity to play in the postseason in his career before he starts preparing for the NFL. We talked to McKay Matoyer about it, and he wants to finish this thing off strong, not just for himself, but to be able to have a couple veteran, experienced guys there for Jackson Arnold when he's making his first career start is huge because otherwise they could be in some dire straits. It looks like Heath Ozeda is probably going to take over at left guard. Now that Caden Green's gone, at least he was repping there with the first team when we were out there. We'll see what Troy Everett's availability is. He was in full pads, but wasn't really going through drills. Looked like Joshua Bates was taking the first team snaps at center. And then obviously on the right side, you still have McCade and Tyler Guyton. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of piece these things together. But at least you have, you have three guys who were starters at the end of the season. Caleb Schaefer's still available there. He can play either guard spot. So we'll see if they move him around, see where Troy Everett's at. So they have guys that have started games, but obviously not having Andrew Rame, not having Caden Green, not having Tyler Guyton, even though, Jacob Sexton took over late in the year. It's a tough situation for them to be in, and obviously something they're going to have to work to rebuild heading into the spring.
Okay, first off, let me put it out there. I'm just embarrassed that the number 3 jersey got me at practice. I mean, I was watching the defense for most of the most of the practice. I was over with the defense with Danny Stutsman, Jaron Kanek, and all those guys, seeing how they were, working out and things like that. They were out there joking around, things like that. It was a good time from them. They were having a lot of fun. So as I'm walking back, that's the only time I glanced at the running backs. I just saw that, oh, there's Tawee Walker out there. Let me get a video, and things like that happened. And number 3 got me. I mean, that's I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed.
We're all the same thing. We saw 3 with running backs, and you're thinking, whoa, Farouk's working with the running backs. My finger was hovering above the tweet button that Jalil Farouk is working with the running backs. And then somebody, I can't remember who, honestly, somebody said, like, is that? And I really, I don't think it is. And then Jalil was over there with the receivers were over on the far side, and he was over there also. They just had 2 number 3s out there. They're just trying to trick us.
I should have just let you guys handle the offensive side like we had it going. I should just kept it like that. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much. And we talked about Caden Green a little bit. I mean, this is the guy I talked to twice throughout the season and got to know him a little bit. He's always said how much he loved Oklahoma. He grew up as a fan and things like that because we talked about the Red River rivalry, and it was like a big experience for him to be out there and playing in that. So the news was shocking. It was shocking, obviously, to us. And we came back to the late practice and talked to the players, and they were, as Josh said, they were shocked as well. They had no idea. And so, I mean, you could just imagine what this offensive line would have looked like with, Caleb Green and Caden Green and Jacob Sexton on that left side to hold it down. That'd have been really good for OU. Now they just got to find another guy to fill in there. I mean, there's many options. There's many options that OU can go after and things like that. So that's the good part. Now, as we talked about with this offensive line, replacing all 5 guys. The good thing is they get to see some of the guys in this game, in the bowl game, like Joshua Bates, guys like that, playing at center helping out with Andrew Ram going off and things like that. This actually is a tune-up. I think it's a tune-up for Oklahoma because they get to see really where they are. I mean, how close are we to being where we want to be? And it would show with these guys out there in the bowl game. So that's actually one of the key, good parts about playing in the bowl game this time around.
Yeah, and I'll say, like, with Heath Ozeta, when we were talking to, Jeff Lebby and Bill Beatonbow and Brent Venables at the beginning of the season, he's a guy that they're really excited about his potential and, like, what his ceiling could be. But he was still a developmental guy, which obviously, he didn't really play this year. So we'll see if they have to throw him in the fire for this game and kind of how he holds up in that regard. But, regardless of, how he looks in this game, he's someone that they like moving forward. It's just a matter of if they can get him there. Breaking in some, first-time starters as you make the move to the SEC is not ideal. They're still working to try to get some guys out of the portal. We'll see what they can do. Obviously, things can look a lot different between now and the start of fall camp in August.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a long way. I mean, they already got Spencer Brown out of the portal. I mean, I'm close to putting in a crystal ball for another guy that's committing tomorrow on the offensive line. So things like that could happen as well. I mean, there's a lot of options, as we said, and it's going to look a lot different, I think.
Yeah, and this goes to show that in modern college football, the bowl game is just as much of a jump on next season as it is. Closing this season.
Finishing out a season, yep.
Yeah, with all the guys who opt out and hit the portal, it's really the team that plays, you have a much better idea of what next year's team will look like than the team you just saw. And that's why, some guys were talking after practice that it kind of feels like really the start of the next season in a lot of ways. Yeah. So, as far as, we mentioned Jalil Farouk, he mentioned after practice that he's most likely going to stay, which was assumed, but you don't know. And it was kind of he couldn't have worded it much weirder, honestly, but he made it sound like he is almost certainly going to be back, which is obviously a big deal. I talked about Colin yesterday. They had Deion Burks from Purdue. That receiver crew is loaded. Excited to see how that shakes out. Moving forward, obviously, got to talk to Jackson Arnold for a long time. He really, he's always been pretty good with the media, but he really kind of stepped in. It felt like as the starter. That was really his first. That was the first time we've talked to him since he was the guy now, and he kind of answered every question. Was very open and honest. I asked him about, Jeff Lebby left. Did you have to think about it? He said, "Yeah, sure. I mean, you have to reevaluate everything, but felt good about Seth Luttrell and that relationship, and he knew that he was in a good spot when they made that hire. And so now you're just looking forward and seeing what else can be done here before the bowl game rolls around. What else did you guys have? Anything that stuck out from either practice or talking to guys after? We obviously got to talk to Billy Bowman, Stutsman. We talked to a lot of guys after practice.
Yeah, quick thing on the Jalil Farouk front. Like you said, he's most likely coming back, but he also said he's really been looking forward to the SEC. Right. So I think that's pretty telling of where he's leaning. It also sounds like he might be moving into the slot next year. Maybe sticks around.
Could see it.
He thinks he's a more natural fit for that spot, and obviously they'll be replacing Drake Stoops. Yeah. Even though Deion Burks is he's got the frame to be a slot guy, but he's not a guy that hasn't played a whole lot of slot at Purdue. So if they can move Jalil Farouk in there and rotate him and like Jaquez Petway, obviously they'll feel very good about that position even when losing Drake Stoops. You mentioned opt-outs, but I thought it was pretty notable that we saw several key seniors out there, especially guys along the defensive line, Dejon Terry, Jordan Kelly, Isaiah Coe, Rondell Bothroyd, Jonah Laulu, all of them were out there. So that the defensive line at least will be in good shape heading into this bowl game, even though they're going to be losing, at least a few of those guys due to graduation and being out of eligibility.
Yeah, Jalil Farouk being in the slot, I mean, that looks really good because now you get Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson on the field at the same time. And on the outsides, and that's a pretty good receiver core. OU in the skill positions looks phenomenal at this point in time. I think they look really, really good. As we talked about with Taylor Tatum coming in as a running back, the number one back in the nation. I mean, I feel like tight end and offensive line is the biggest thing now for this team. I mean, they got one tight end coming in as 4 or 5 star, however you want to look at him, Devon Mitchell. So that's going to look really good. But just the skill positions overall look really, really good. I mean, and we got to talk to a lot of them yesterday as well. I mean, they're saying a lot of good things. I mean, even when you look at the defensive side, Ginger Williams said he's fully healthy. I mean, that's exactly what you want to hear from your cornerback that was banged up for a lot of the season. I mean, you had to play a lot of different guys because he kept getting hurt, but we knew he was the guy that, he was the one. I mean, he had the interception against Texas that started the game, started the rally for OU in that rivalry game. So having him back is very good. I mean, we see other things. He said Billy Bowman got snubbed, which is what we already said from the Jim Thorpe Award. We all thought that already. I'm glad that he was able to confirm that for us. He's snubbed out there. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things happening at this point in time.
Yeah, and Woody Washington was out there practicing too. He's obviously a guy we're still waiting to see what he decides, if he's going to come back or because he has another year of eligibility at his disposal, or if he's going to declare for the draft. So, we haven't had a chance to talk to him, but clearly he's, preparing for this bowl game. We'll see what he decides moving forward. I thought, speaking to, Danny Stutsman after all that whole ordeal of, will he or won't he, wavering back and forth on his decision. I thought he was very candid. He's always a refreshing interview. Sometimes you can't tell if he's joking or if he's being completely serious, but I thought it was a very candid interview with him, and just some good insight into his thought process. He said it was, when he met with Brent Venables last Monday, he was fully committed to declaring for the draft. And then, Venables reached back out to him on Friday, and he's like, I'm glad he did, because, I was, having some second thoughts myself, and then told Brent that he needed the weekend. And, Sunday night, his dad calls Venables and tells him, hey, Danny's coming back. Brent calls Danny, hyped. Danny shows up Monday, getting ready to make his announcement. His locker's cleared out because he wasn't at practice the 2 days before. He sees his stuff kind of just like sprawled across the room, in a plastic bag. His katana,
allegedly.
His katana's in the middle of the floor.
Katana, it's got
it. But it was very interesting to hear him talk about his decision and why he ultimately decided to come back. He didn't want to have any regrets. He didn't want to have any buyer's remorse. Right. Was another term we heard. He said, look, I'm sure he's getting a great NIL package through all this, but he said it wasn't about the money for him. It was about wanting to, finish this thing off, playing in the SEC for a year, played a role in that too. He said Billy Bowman's decision to come back
actually helped.
200% impacted his decision too. So the fact that Oklahoma was getting both those guys back, like we said, it's like signing a pair of 5-star guys, but who have, multiple years of starting experience.
And if you've been watching this show for the entire season, the katana joke goes back to the very beginning, when Denny Stutsman had that cut on his nose, and he looked like the protocol linebacker just bleeding from his nose. He said he got cut by his katana. So now it's just perfect that he brought that back up at the very end. That's a fitting way to end the season. But yeah,
well, you remember in the offseason, him and Jaron were filming videos of messing around with those things and like doing cool like ninja skits and stuff.
I'm gonna lose a limb at some point.
How is Oklahoma sanctioning this right now?
He let him do what he wants. He's walking around doing what he wants. I mean, he did confirm a lot of things. Like we said, he confirmed that, yes, he did say he was leading for the draft. He confirmed that the video that he made was not made in a weekend. He already had it ready from getting ready for the Buckets Award. Right. He thought he was going to be a candidate. So all that was already there. So he confirmed a lot of things for us and cleared up a lot of stuff. So it was a very good interview with him, just talking with him and hearing the entire story. And so just coming back to Oklahoma, he was like, I mean, you can never go back to college. You can always go back. You can always go to the NFL, which only a few guys can actually say something like that. That's crazy to say. But yeah, you can always go back to college. And so he took the opportunity to go back. I mean, it's going to help OU out a lot. As we said, they're like 5-star signees that you're getting with a ton of experience and a guy that next year might definitely go for the Buckets Award. He should have been in there this year if he hadn't got hurt, I think. So there's a lot to look forward to with Danny Stutsman coming back.
Yeah, and I believe that the video, I think they filmed it after the Kansas game. So they're filming it kind of between Bedlam there when he was dealing with that ankle injury, actually. And he posted some other photos of from that day, from that shoot, and you see the Buckus Award in the passenger seat of the Corvette with him. So just to squash any conspiracy theories, no, he did not shoot that the weekend leading up to this. That's a big production to put together. They had that thing in the works in the can. It was supposed to be a late season Butkus campaign, and then he didn't make the semifinalist list, so they kind of just shelved it until he decided to repurpose it for this.
It's all perfect. It's all part of the Danny Stutsman lore, and he has a whole nother year in the SEC. And it was a similar sentiment from Billy Bowman, just a lot less flashy, I guess. Billy's much more of a reserved person than Danny is, but I asked Billy, why did you decide to come back? And I'm not done yet. I'm not done at OU. I'm not ready. I'm not a finished product, I think is what he said exactly. And So it's exciting, and OU fans have a lot to be thankful for because, like you guys said, Danny said straight up that Billy coming back had a big influence on him. And I think Billy was asked, did he recruit Danny back? And he said, not really. He's like, but I know that me coming back had a big effect on him. And so they were kind of a package deal in some ways. And so the fact they got both is pretty big.
Maybe Woody will follow in the steps as well. Maybe he'll come back as well from that.
Doesn't hurt. I'm sure it makes it more likely.
Yeah. Billy and Danny came in together in that 2021 class. There's only a few guys still remaining. Jalil was in that class. Ethan Downs was in that class. Not really a whole lot of guys left from that group. So, I think it, especially to Danny, talking to him, the fact that they're sticking this thing out and, seeing it through to year 3 with Brent Venables, year 1 in the SEC was very important to him.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So, tomorrow, we're back at it in Norman. Venables is going to speak after practice. Looking forward to that. First time we talked to Venables since that Alamo Bowl Zoom presser thing where he said some stuff that was of note. And we'll see what he has to say tomorrow. Obviously, it's been a crazy week around here, so we'll see what he is willing to say. And it's going to be exciting. And we'll find out some more details about the team less than 2 weeks before they take the field again. That'll be tomorrow, about 1:30 or so, I think. So keep an eye out on the YouTube channel for Venables' full interview. And again, that practice and all those player interviews are also on the YouTube channel right now as well. Great to get to talk to Jackson and Danny and Billy and several other guys as well. So, transfer portal segment, which we have on every show. You would think that, Wednesday I did a show with Colin that was exclusively transfer portal talk, 100%. And we're doing another podcast a day later. Probably don't have any transfer portal stuff. No, stuff still happened. Got to get into Samuel Franklin committed to Oklahoma yesterday, running back from UT Martin. If you watched the podcast yesterday with Colin and I, pretty much every time that I was talking, Colin was looking off to the side, typing. He was getting a story ready for Samuel Franklin because that was expected to happen yesterday, and obviously it eventually did. Incredibly productive. His numbers are awesome, about 1,300 yards, almost 1,400, and a bunch of I think it was 11 touchdowns in 11 games. Really, really good. I know it's UT Martin, so people will maybe scoff at that. The note from Matt Zenitz that he put up on our board that one Power 5 staffer described him as a definite NFL prospect. Like, this kid is good. He's a diamond in the rough. They needed a running back. It wasn't dire, but they could have used one with the guys you lost, and they did it. They went out and got Sam Franklin. Guys, I think this is an immediate impact guy. I mean, how big of a role he'll have, we'll see. Obviously, you figure Sawchuck Barnes are your two guys in place, but Franklin will be in the mix whenever next season rolls around. What do we make of this ad for Oklahoma here with Sam Franklin?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they feel like, you need bodies in that room. We saw what that running back room was kind of piecemeal through, first half of the season until Gavin Sawchuck got healthy and kind of took over that lead role. You don't know what kind of, minor injuries or nagging injuries might pop up that could just kind of derail, your run game. And, I think especially with Seth Luttrell taking over, even though his offense is, based in the air raid, he's a guy that runs the ball quite a good bit for someone who came up through that system. And, look, Sam Franklin, like you said, he's a diamond in the rough. You point out the numbers, nearly 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns. He forced 53 missed tackles this season, averaged almost 4 yards per carry after contact, 868 of his, 1,300 whatever yards were after contact. So he's a guy that's hard to bring down, 5'11", 200 pounds, kind of built like Tawi Walker. So probably kind of guy that can kind of fill that role, have a similar running style, even though he's not, a taller, bigger back, but certainly a little bowling ball out there. It's got some good breakaway speed.
Yeah, I don't want it to be lost on fans when you look at something like this. It's like you get a guy that's already been in college, has already been productive in college. It doesn't make sense to be excited about a high schooler that's had a great career and not be excited about a guy that had a really good career in college already. I mean, he's done a really good job. So you're bringing in a high caliber, which will be put together as a high school player. So this is something to really be excited about if you're OU. I mean, this is a really good back to bring in. As I talked about already, the running back room is going to look really, really good this year. And you add a guy like him to go along with it. I mean, they seem like they're fully stacked, and they shouldn't be in a position that they were this year, where it was like the top two guys got hurt. And so now we're shuffling around trying to figure out who's the guy going to be? Who is it? Who can be productive? I think you get into a situation now where all these guys can be productive when they're fully healthy and things like that. I don't think all of them are going to be hurt at the same time and this time around. It's just like the odds are in your favor now, I feel like, with bringing this guy in.
Yeah, and we'll see how his game translates to the SEC. You know, at UT Martin, he played one game against an SEC school this year, and it was Georgia in that season opener. And it's hard to judge everybody in week one, but 46 yards on 12 carries against Georgia. And look, Georgia's a very tough team to run against. Obviously, he had much better production throughout the rest of the year. We'll see, like I said, how his game translates to the SEC, but just adding another experienced body with some proven production to that room is only a benefit for them at this point. Like I said, after you look at how this season played out, when we're talking in July, August that, oh yeah, Gavin Sawchuk, Javonte Barnes going to be for sure the 1-2 punch, and then don't really see much of either of them until the second half of the season, and that's when Gavin Sawchuk, is finally healthy, finally comes on. Javonte Barnes, his whole season was just basically derailed by that lingering foot issue. So obviously don't want to make any sweeping assumptions about how who's going to be the number one guy, who's going to be the number two guy, but just having another experienced body in that room is great for them.
And 42 yards on 12 carries, it's not entirely bad either. I mean, it's almost 4 yards to carry, so that's a good situation to be in. So it's a really good situation. I mean, it's a good back. He's a really good back. I mean, it's just putting it lightly. That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, for the year, he averaged 6.2 yards per carry for the year. So he was very, very productive at UT Martin. Obviously, can't judge him completely on that Georgia game, but it is, and look, he was playing behind an FCS offensive line too, so it's not like he was playing, with the caliber of players that he's going to be playing with at Oklahoma. So again, we'll see, but I like this pickup for Oklahoma.
Yeah, Sawchuk, Barnes, Franklin, obviously year two for Hicks. You got Tatum and Xavier Robinson coming in. Lots of depth there. DeMarco Murray has to feel pretty good about that group overall. You still do have Emeka Meglaw lurking, whatever. He looks great in pads. The guy is jacked. If he can get healthy, where does he fit in? But yeah, you certainly have a lot of options going next year. And obviously they're not done yet, but you've made 4 portal pickups at this point. Spencer Brown, obviously Dejon Malone, and now Deion Burks and Franklin. All 4 of those guys feel like, and it's the idea of the transfer portal, but all 4 of those guys feel like instant contributors. Obviously Brown, you expect definitely to take over a tackle spot. And then Malone will factor into the rotations at cornerback. That'll depend on Woody. But then Burks is going to play a lot. And I like I said, I happen to think that Franklin will probably at least be in the mix for carries. So they've made 4 useful additions. They're not done by any means. They need more offensive line. They're pursuing more offensive line. They still need a tight end. They're pursuing tight ends. So, they're not done, but good start. 4 guys that you feel pretty good about so far in the transfer portal. We'll be sure to keep you updated. Again, like we said yesterday, Colin's all over it. So become a VIP subscriber. He'll let you know where they're headed, who's visiting. A lot of guys coming to town this weekend, and where things kind of stand on a lot of these guys as we move forward and figure out who's going to be on this team next year. All right, to close, SEC schedule came out yesterday. We've known the opponents for a long time, but we didn't know the dates or the order or how it was all going to shake out. And now we do. Very exciting to get to actually see like I said, we knew the opponents, but to actually see the way it lays out was exciting, and it's fun to watch. So if you didn't see it, I'll run through it real fast. Temple, Houston, Tulane, we knew that already to start the year. Those are all at home. Tennessee at home, we knew that. At Auburn, they're going to be the first road game in week 5. So the first 4 games are all at home. Then they go to Auburn. Bye week, the Texas game on the 12th. South Carolina at home, at Ole Miss. Maine comes to Norman. That's going to be a snoozer. Missouri, Alabama, or bye week, Alabama at home. And then we finish in Death Valley on Thanksgiving week at LSU, which is going to be insane. What sticks out? Obviously, there's a lot of different angles you could take to this. But what's the thing when you look at this that jumped out to you immediately?
I think the biggest thing to me is just how well timed the bye weeks are.
I was going to say that. That's what I was going to say. It's one of those years where just because of the way the calendar shakes out, with
where Labor Day falls and where Thanksgiving falls, that it's a 14-week regular season. So everybody in the country is going to have 2 bye weeks, And Oklahoma's bye weeks could not come at a better time. It's before your two biggest games of the season, right there before the Texas game in October, and then right there before that back-to-back of Alabama LSU to end the season. Couldn't have asked for a more appropriately timed bye weeks. Look, we knew the schedule was going to be tough, but to have an extra week off before you're playing two teams that are in the college football playoff this season is huge. Should note Texas also has a bye week before the Red River rivalry, so both teams should be refreshed. I think that's going to just add another layer of intensity to the rivalry next year. Alabama does not have a bye week before coming to Norman, but they do play Mercer, an FCS team, so it's a tune-up for them. Yeah. But yeah, that is by far the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah, we knew the schedule was going to be tough. I mean, we saw it early in the year when we first learned the teams that OU was going to play, because it's based off of your past success where you've been playing. And OU's been playing in the Big 12 and have been dominating the Big 12 for a long time. So they're going to have a tough schedule. I mean, it's just what it is now. But it's the SEC, so most of the teams are going to have a tough schedule. I mean, but when you look at it, the favorable part of it, I mean, it's for OU. Is like they have these good parts, like the first 4 games are home games. I mean, that OU doesn't really lose at home, so you have that on your side. Then you have the bye weeks before, as Tom just said, before those 2 big games. I mean, there's all that helps out in these situations. Getting an extra week to prepare for Texas, getting an extra week to prepare for Alabama. I mean, that's favorable. That's favorable when you think about it in the long run. And just Alabama's at home, isn't it? Yeah. So I mean, like all of that is going in favor of OU. I think there's some things to worry about, yes, but they have some favorable aspects on the schedule as well that they really can benefit from if they're fully healthy and can put it all together. It should work out really well for OU.
Yeah, I mean the SEC, tried to do a very good job of kind of balancing everybody's schedules so that nobody really has a cakewalk. And look, nobody was going to have that because you have a deep 16-team league. Everybody was going to have some challenging stretches there. But, like James said, in June when the opponents were announced, we knew that Oklahoma was going to have a tough schedule. We didn't know how, it was going to shake out in terms of, who falls where. But I don't think, a lot of us didn't expect Missouri to have as good of a season as it did this year.
Exactly.
I mean, you look at Oklahoma's schedule going into next year, 6 of their 8 SEC games are against teams that finished in the top 25 of the college football playoff rankings, including 5 of those against teams that were in the top 13. You're facing 2 playoff teams in Texas and Alabama. The Texas game, you're the designated home team, but it's at the Cotton Bowl. We know what that's like. Alabama, you get at home, fortunately. Tennessee finished in the top 25. You're getting them at home to open the SEC schedule. We've obviously known that one for a few weeks. Josh Heupel, his first game back since he was, offensive coordinator here. So I'd expect him to get a pretty warm welcome, at least pregame. At Ole Miss is going to be difficult. They're a team that finished just ahead of Oklahoma in the rankings. Like I mentioned, at Missouri, another tough one. We'll see how they kind of carry that over year because they were kind of a little bit more of a surprise this year. But I think the rest of those, at LSU, at Ole Miss, Bama, Tennessee, those are teams that have shown that they are top 15, top 20 caliber teams year over year. But again, hey, it could be a lot worse. You look at Florida's schedule. Their final 5 games are against teams that are ranked in the top 13.
Yeah.
That is brutal.
Their final 5 is hilarious.
Yeah.
I really think it, as favorable as it really could be, honestly. Like I said, with the bye weeks where they are positioned, I really think you have a nice runway to get off to a nice start. Obviously, we knew the non-conference games were all pretty manageable, and they're at home. I mean, they're not all complete gimmies. I mean, we've seen what Tulane has been. Obviously, Willie Fritz no longer there. He's at Houston, though, who you also play, who is a Big 12 team that is a Power 5 opponent. I know it doesn't really feel like it because it's new, but it is. Tennessee's at home, at Auburn. Not that I mean, that place is going to be crazy. I mean, obviously, Tom would know far better than me, but that's a team that's in a bit of a rebuild right now with Hugh Freeze. Obviously, they struggled a bit at times this year. They almost beat Alabama, but they also had some rough ones. New Mexico State housed them by 3 touchdowns. That's a game you should feel good about. So you have a chance, I think, to be 5-0, going into the Texas game. And then, as far as your biggest games, you don't have like a very noticeable back-to-back, except for at the end of the year with Bama and LSU. And you'd hope you're playing your best ball by then. Obviously, Jackson Arnold has plenty of time to get acclimated and comfortable before you get there. So all these considered, I mean, like I said, you get South Carolina at home, who has had a rough year. We'll see what they are next year. They're going to have a new quarterback, things like that. You get them before you go to the Grove. You get, obviously, like we said, Maine before you go to Missouri. The bye week before you host Alabama. So there's openings there to kind of, I think, always feel like you're in a good – you're never drowning where it's like, okay, we just lost 2 in a row. We have another one. You know what I mean? That seems avoidable here. So overall, I think it worked out okay for Oklahoma.
And this is why we brought Tom over right here. We need the SEC insight. This is the guy. He's the wise one.
You look at those final 2 games, and like that is going to be a brutal finish. And look, a lot of teams are going to have brutal stretches in their schedule. But if Oklahoma can continue to progress under Brent Venables, you're looking at 2 games the last 2 weeks of the season that very well could have playoff implications, and should if these I don't think anybody expects Alabama to fall off. Even if they have an early season loss, Nick Saban finds a way to get that team on track and have them in contention. LSU is obviously, they're going to be having a new quarterback with Jaden Daniels out the door, and, probably Malik Neighbors gone too. But, Brian Kelly does a really good job of recruiting. He obviously has a track record of building successful programs, so I would expect them to be good too. But with the playoff expanding to 12 teams, you're looking at 2, could potentially be like play-in type games for all these teams late in the season. Finishing at LSU is going to be insane. Baton Rouge, just in general, for games is crazy. If that game is a night game, the final week of the season, man, it is going to be nuts.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
But yeah, I mean, like they have a chance to get off to a really good start. They need to take advantage of that 4-game home stretch because, the final 2 months of the season, they only have, 3 games at home. One of those is obviously Alabama. One of those is Maine. The other one's South Carolina. So between the SEC opener and the second to last week of the season, you don't really have any marquee home games, which kind of sucks for the fans. But you do have, Alabama coming in. You have Tennessee. You have South Carolina. They're teams that at least are going to pique the interest of this fan base because, again, we talked about Tennessee is a top 25 team now, but also you have the Josh Heupel coming in. South Carolina, obviously Shane Beamer was an assistant at Oklahoma, so his first game back, and I think it's going to be the first game ever between South Carolina and Oklahoma, so that'll at least be a little intriguing. But yeah, just going to be fun to watch, man.
It is.
Yeah, you never have to worry about Oklahoma fans coming out anyway. I mean, they're going to come out and show up in rows anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's just going to be fun, man. Just seeing everything that's happened with the schedule, it's going to be a good time. I think one thing I want to get off my chest when watching the 2-hour-long schedule release show, obviously, that was crazy, a lot more longer than it needed to be. But a lot of talk was. Go ahead.
At least they got it out there, like in the first half hour. They didn't drag it out. They did it week by week, but they were pretty quick about it. The rest was just analyzing it and all that stuff. But I get it. You don't need a 2-hour show.
Yeah, but a lot of the talk was kind of like Oklahoma and Texas kind of like getting into the SEC and adapting to what the SEC does. I mean, these teams are going to have to adapt to Oklahoma and Texas as well. Oklahoma, as we said before, they have a winning record against SEC teams. Now it's coming in, in playoffs and bowl games like this with the end of the year, but there's some strengths that these teams are bringing in as well. There's going to be an adaptation going both ways. It's not like an FCS schools are joining the FBS. That's not how this is going to work. I mean, they're going to have to adapt to these situations.
Texas be Alabama this year,
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, you look at it. I think we all were in agreement that probably about 9 wins is probably about all you need to really be in the fringe of that 12-team playoff race. I mean, you should win all your home games outside of Alabama for sure. I mean, Tennessee and South Carolina, obviously, they have players and team, but OU will be solid favorites in both those games. You should win all your non-conference. So you should be 6-0. That's 6 wins right there that you should absolutely have. You can beat Alabama, and then you just have to split the other 6 with your road trips, and then you're probably right there. So there's reasons to be, optimistic, I think, even the way the schedule is, because it just, like I said, I think it kind of worked out as well as it could have, frankly.
Yeah. And again, we'll see what this roster looks like in the summer after the second transfer portal window, and probably have a better idea of what to expect in terms of wins and losses. But I wouldn't be surprised, like, with the offseason hits and Oklahoma's, over under for wins is set at like 8.5.
Yeah. Right. That's probably about
And
right.
it's crazy that nine wins. That should be enough. That's crazy that it's like that now in college football. It's like you used to have to go undefeated to even think about championships and things like that. Now you can get to 9 wins, and you can have a chance to play for a title because you have to win that playoff series. I mean, pretty much what it is, not series, but go through the playoffs and things like that. I mean, it's crazy. The SEC and the Big Ten are going to get very favorable, positions in the playoffs based on what the committee has done so far. I mean, those are the 2 power conferences now. I mean, like that's what it's going to be now.
It's obviously. I was just thinking about it. It's obviously asking a lot, and who knows how the season will go. But can you imagine if Oklahoma does make the SEC championship game and you finish the year with Alabama, LSU, and then Georgia, we'll say, in Atlanta to end the year? That is quite the 3-game stretch to end your season. Exciting. That's what you signed up for. That's what makes it. That's what makes it fun.
Hey, listen, OU's been the big dog for quite some time. Throughout the years. I mean, even when they were in the Big 12, they weren't actually the big dog like where they used to be. They used to be what Alabama and Georgia and all of them are now. So they're getting back to that exactly what everybody wants. I think it's just they want OU back in that conversation, back up there with the big dogs. And it's been 24 years, 20-something years since the last national championship. They want to get back to that, and so this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, and the one other thing I want to mention, mention the 6 of 8 SEC games against teams that are ranked in the top 25 right now. Should mention obviously Tulane was the runner-up in the American Conference this year. They were ranked in the first 5 college football playoff rankings before losing to SMU in the championship game. So that's a quality team too. Obviously it's going to look different next year with Willie Fritz gone, but John Summerall proved very quickly at Troy that he's capable of fielding a very respectable team. But again, like you said, Oklahoma should be favored in those first 4 games and has a very good opportunity to have a runway there to start the year strong before that schedule gets pretty tough.
Yeah, Tulane, that's a tough team. As you said, it's a tough team. I feel like they got a lot of publicity when they played Oklahoma very close that year that they were supposed to be the home team. So it already had, all those implications. They had to come to Norman and play here. OU painted their logo on the field, things like that. It helped them out a lot. And they played a close game. So I think they got a publicity off of that. And they've been getting stronger since then. I mean, Josh can attest to that. They've just been getting stronger since then. And so OU really needs to take them seriously. It's not like the old Tulane. This is a Tulane you got to really pay attention to and play well against.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. It's exciting, because just, again, you looked at the slate this year and compare it to that next year and how many more marquee games are on it. And then that's why Oklahoma and Texas do what they're doing. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Texas has got Georgia the week after the OU game, which is, that's insane. That's insane. And it's going to be fun. That's amazing. It's going to be fun. The Big Ten's going to be fun too with the Pac-12 teams going in there. It's going to be chaos, and I look forward to it. And we have to get used to, kind of like James was saying, get used to resetting our brains in that you can lose 2 or 3 and still be in the mix. You're playing top 15, top 20 teams every other weekend the whole way through. And I mean, it makes sense. It's just kind of you have to adjust your brain and how you view your season in college football. You're not going to go. Oklahoma's not going to go undefeated 11-1 with regularity anymore. It's not never going to happen, but it's not going to be a given year to year like it was for a long time. It's just not. You can't play 3, 4, 5 top 10 teams a year and expect that. It's going to be different. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, and it's not just Oklahoma. A lot of teams are going to be in that situation. Yeah, it's just to clarify that. I mean, it's just it's going to be tougher now. It's getting close to semi-pro football, Josh. I mean that's what it is now. It's like it's semi-pro. This is getting these guys ready for the NFL because the gauntlet of schedule and the amount of games they're playing is exactly like if you played your regular schedule, your conference championship, and got through the entire playoffs. I mean, it's getting very close to what you played in the NFL. Like 17 games. So it's like you're getting close to semi-pro status. This is what it is now. Like guys getting paid. I mean, that's where college football's headed.
I think that's it. Look forward to it next year. We'll have a lot of time to break it down and get ready. Obviously, just excited. We're excited to get the dates on there. I'm excited to go to LSU to end the year. Not that Missouri to end the year wouldn't have been fun. And I don't know if it's going to end with LSU every year. I don't know if that's going to be a Thanksgiving thing now or I don't know how that'll work. But for at least this year, it'll be crazy. It'll be awesome. I mean, the same day that Ohio State, Michigan, and the Iron Bowl, you have OU, LSU at night, presumably.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do. That'll play. So look forward to that when we get there. Long way to go, but look forward to it. All right, I think that's it. We'll be back on Monday to talk about whatever happens between now and then. Obviously, transfer portal continues to be insane, and more team news will be coming out. Like I said, we're going to talk to Brent Venables tomorrow. So keep an eye on that tomorrow afternoon to hear from him, and we'll obviously break down what he has to say on Monday. More basketball action this weekend as well. The men have had a little bit of some time off here. They get back to it on Saturday night. So the show will recap that just a little bit as well, and whatever else going on for Oklahoma football as well, obviously. That's it. For Tom Green, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you guys Monday, the next edition of the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.